Greetings all. It's day-oyabunmi. Thank you for joining me for another episode. Really quickly, before I get into the topic today, if you're interested in a personal tarot reading, an Ifa reading, a head Orisha reading, if you're interested in Ifa Orisha related online courses and ebooks, please check out my website. I also have a Patreon page. So if you're interested in joining a group of like-minded folks who are exploring Ifa Orisha topics, please come on over. I have a lot of exclusive content over there, okay? Great. So I wanted to do a check-in about the spiritual purpose behind the pandemic. And yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get right into it. I want you guys to hear this very clearly. I think it's a bit of a shock to me, but not really, I guess. One of the things that's going to come out of this experience is great abundance. So, of course, when we think of abundance, we typically think of money, but abundance can be mental and emotional peace, right? You can have an abundance of mental well-being. You can have an abundance of love, right? Freedom, goodwill. So abundance can come in a lot of different ways. But there's a great shift of fortune that comes with the pandemic, right? And even though when we look at it from the mundane 3D perspective, the shift of fortune we've seen is, people have passed away and people have lost businesses and have had to be sequestered and stay in their homes. And, those don't sound like good things, but there is something grand and great coming as a result of this pandemic. Okay? This very much was something that, if not orchestrated by spirit, was allowed to take place for a very specific reason. There may have been someone here on the planet inspired to kind of kick this off, and they may have thought they were doing it of their own volition, but they were not. They were divinely inspired. So say, it's a possibility that this came from a lab. This was a divine intervention of sorts where it needed to come out into the population for several reasons. One of the words that I received before this reading was detach. This was definitely meant to be a period of detachment for us. And what other way would any of us have had the opportunity to spend this much time at home, this much time with family, this much time with our own thoughts, our own feelings? There is no other time. Usually it's like when people get sick, right, and they're forced to sit down, they sit down. Or in a case like this, we were forced to sit down. But it's not always common, right? In addition to the detachment, there was a need for balance to be reintroduced to the earth, to our dealings with one another, to just all of the ways that we live, all of the ways that we process information. I see a great balance coming to that, but also a bringing in of peace. And like I said, it was a very difficult time, but so much good is going to come from that difficult period. This is putting us on a path towards great growth and expansion. People were forced to sit down so that they could gain clarity about their lives. Some people were living in a fog and were virtually like zombies. Those of us in the rat race kind of getting up, doing the same thing day in, day out, doing it begrudgingly, unhappy, insecure, just not happy at all. this time period was meant to usher in like this clarity, this detachment, so that peace can return to humanity. Mostly inner mental peace and clarity. A lot of bosses and leaders are going to come out of this time because people who thought that they absolutely needed the system to survive, they absolutely needed their jobs, right? They absolutely needed all of these institutions. And then when those institutions shut down, they were still fine. And so we have leaders coming out of this. I have here the card vanity. And we know vanity is when someone is too focused on physical appearances, on the outside, right? The mundane, the external. I see that spiritually, this time was brought to take a focus away from those things. This isolation really forced us to go inside. And what's also going to come from this, in addition to those bosses and leaders, is great wisdom. There are going to be leaders who will rise up from this period and will be able to go out and really and spark the changes that we need here on the earth. Some of us needed to understand that we can't control everything, and that control is an illusion, right? And that loss can come at any time. And when that loss comes, we can survive. Some of us needed to know that for our own self-empowerment, for the self-empowerment of the collective. There's great information like an enlightenment, a great period of enlightenment that comes as a result of this pandemic, as this time away from things. This great realization is going to put us in alignment with the great flow of life. People who were not connected spiritually, were not connected to their higher consciousness, were not really connected to the God consciousness or whatever you would like to call it, are now more connected because they had the time to just sit still. People who were dealing with mental illness were forced to deal with it, to work on healing it. When you're too busy and always on the run, it can get easy to bury harmful emotional patterns, right? And to bury trauma. But this experience made us face it. People had to deal with their inner demons. This also brought separations that were needed. Separations of couples, separations from jobs, things that we wouldn't readily get rid of. This period forced us to get rid of them. Some people learned through this experience that they are provided for, that they are safe, that no matter what happens, what is thrown at them, that they will be okay. People learn that they need to be flexible and adaptable to situations. And most of all, I see that people who struggle with confidence, with lack of exerting will, their personal will, I see that some of those people really were able to evolve beyond that and take the reins of their own life. I see people coming out of this period so empowered. Powerful. I just got the word powerful, like a lifting up of the power within because we were able to connect with ourselves. And not everyone was able to go through this process and come out okay, right? So sending love and peace to the people who didn't make it out, who couldn't do this. But for those of us that are still here and are in a good frame of mind, this is going to be a great period of affluence and abundance that is coming to us as a result of this. If some of you haven't experienced that already. For those people who are part of the Great Resignation, who have decided that they no longer want their jobs, they no longer can tolerate working that way, right? Now that they've seen how easy it is to work from home, or have realized how toxic their workplaces were, they're going to take the stance of the great manifester. They'll see that they are able to create work that is fulfilling, work that brings joy and peace. This period was brought to us to bring us clarity, wisdom, to increase our faith, to align us with this new timeline we're entering into. And they're telling me that everyone couldn't make that transition into this new timeline. And there will be more people who won't be able to come with us into the new timeline. And so they will transition out of their bodies. Those of us that are here, the seeds have been planted and are flourishing. The seeds have been planted so that we'll see this new growth, and a new growth that's going to be so beautiful. It's going to take us to a new level of humanity. Be open to the changes that are here, and try to approach them, to face them with courage, because you're going to need it. Great abundance, great affluence, great change is coming. And as we know, change is not always easy. Give up your need for control. Things are going to be happening that will make you feel very unsettled because you can't control it. But spiritually, they want us to remember that. Because when we know that we can't control things, we're more adaptable, flexible, and ready for whatever. Thanks for listening, guys. Ashe.